my new best friend, Brad Lander, who will be reborn as a lotus flower.
Yesterday was really remarkable. You're right. There has been in New York, in some ways, ever since the pandemic.
This quality is terrible. Absolutely terrible. 240p, huh? You know what? The audio is what matters.
Pandemic, and certainly since Trump's election, it's kind of a dark time. You got Trump in office, you have Eric Adams corruption, you have Andrew Cuomo running this campaign like the city's in crisis, and meanwhile Zohran Mamdani runs this very hopeful campaign. He and I then cross-endorsed in an unusual way that ranked choice voting makes possible, and people said, we love the idea of politics as more of a team sport for the future of our city than as the selfish politics that Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams have played. And yesterday, voters all over came out in this really hopeful spirit that said, we want a New York City that everyone can afford and where everyone belongs. And I hope Democrats around the country are inspired by it.
There are certainly Democrats who will be looking at this and wondering what it could mean for them. I wonder if you think that should be Democratic Party leaders like New York Senator and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. What do you think he should be thinking about today?
Well, look, I mean, Zohran Mamdani has won the Democratic primary. You're right. We have to see the ranked choice tabulations, but Andrew Cuomo conceded. Everybody knows it. Democrats now should come together behind the Democratic nominee. And well,
I love this because it's a weaponization of the rhetoric that Democrats have beat us over the head with for years and years. But this time, unlike those times, he's referring to an actual popular mandate, not the entire fucking deep state uniting to push Biden to the front of the candidacy list, you know? This is what we heard with Biden after the media did everything in their power to make Biden the default choice, okay? But nobody made Mamdani the default choice. He had to fight and claw his way up the hill to win. And now it's time for you to bow down and you to unify behind the unity candidate.
Help him win in November.
Okay, and also you're aware, conservatives are seeing opportunity here. Actually, President Trump just posted about the race.
No, they're not. Actually, and I mean this sincerely, this is collaborationist rhetoric. Don't act as though Mamdani is a weakness for the Democrats. The Democrats are a weakness for the Democrats. Mamdani is your one strength. Okay? The Democrats are a scrawny, bullied weakling who finally, after scrambling in the dirt, after getting kicked out of him for 45 minutes, has found a dagger in some bushes. And he pulls out the dagger, and the bullies all go, oh, you got a little knife? And your thought here in this situation is, look, they're making fun of the knife. You have made yourself weaker before them. Toss the knife. Don't be stupid. Yeah, they're going to focus on Mamdani. They can't ignore him. So rally behind him.
And he said, it's in part, it's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Dem primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. As you know, of course.
Wow, that sounds like, yep, they really found the weak point in the armor there, huh? I like just a weakness opened up. You're kidding me. Trump calling a Democrat a deranged commie? That's, oof. If only Mamdani hadn't won, maybe we could have finally avoided, we could have been clear of this accusation.
We're noting here there are more steps ahead of us here, but what is your response to that?
Well, first, I love that Zohran Mamdani is in Donald Trump's head. In that same tweet, Trump calls Senator Schumer a Palestinian. Like, they're going to lie whatever we do. What I think this election shows, what last night's election shows, is people are hungry for a hopeful vision, and they're hungry for fighters. I'll be honest. I don't think the line for the party right now is between progressives and moderates. I think it's between fighters and folders. People want someone who's going to go to bat for working people, paint a real vision of a city people could afford, fight for it, and get on the field. And that's what I think Zohran did. I was proud.
This is true, by the way. Like, genuinely, I really think the difference between socialists and moderate liberals is much less significant than the difference between people who can do and people who cannot. Like the line right now, because sitting on the back benches will be both dickless establishment liberals and do-nothing socialists who sit on Twitter and whine about everything, you know? Like, they're both going to be there doing nothing. They get to play in the loser's ball pit filled with piss, you know? Out there, actually doing things, if you're a moderate, I don't care, you know? Your mental illnesses are your problems, okay? Fall in line and don't get it, you know, make a fuss when Mamdani tries to make the world better against your better instincts. Your job is to help where you can.
To be a part of that with our cross endorsement, and that's what I think Democrats need to do in New York City and really all across the country.
He has proposed.
I love Lander, man.
The aftershocks of last night's political earthquake in New York City are still reverberating.
Let's see how CNN's doing.
Throughout New York and well beyond. 33-year-old state assemblyman Zohran Mamdani.
Here is a potential roadmap to success in New York in a primary context, but they're trying to figure out now, well, how do we apply this to more purple areas that they need to win in order to be a successful national party again? And there's no easy answer to that because there's a debate here. Is it Mamdani's progressive policies? Lots of centrists say, no, that's not it, though AOC and Bernie Sanders will tell you that is exactly part of the winning formula. Or is it that a young person appeal to young voters?
Policy, it's not even policy that matters, like fundamentally. It's about the energy to fight back, which Democrats lack completely because it's just anathema to neoliberals. Liberals used to be able to fight back against fascism. That's why World War II played out the way it did. Seriously, like there were it's crazy to think about today, but liberals as a political class used to actually get in like street fights over issues from like women's suffrage to the availability of food in grocery stores to union rights to like people who proudly called themselves liberals, right? Because liberalism is a very influential like ideological umbrella that contains within it a lot of things that you and I agree on, right? So, you know, suffrage, liberation, egalitarianism, even if it doesn't often succeed in achieving these things. Nowadays, though, liberals aren't defined by their ability to fight. They're uniquely weak, especially compared to fascists, who you'd think would be the liberals' natural enemy, but clearly no.
In an authentic way.
Can he, you know, come through with some of these promises that he wants in a very expensive city? I would add two things to what David said. One is I think you cannot ignore there was a big anti-Andrew Cuomo vote. People do not like him, and we saw that on display. And then just the question of New York versus national. There are two very high-profile governor's races, your home state, New Jersey, Mickey Sherrill. In Virginia, Abigail Spanberger. These are centrists who look...
Oh, so they want Mamdani to fail? CNN? Yes. We are going to consume CNN in great quantities, though not, I'm afraid, this segment, because I don't care for its tone. I want to see the arguments. Why? Because Mamdani is going to be attacked from every angle. And we need to be very, very smart and very aware in how we defend them. Don't act on doubt. Don't second guess. You need to be twice as self-assured as the stupidest Trump supporter you know, okay? Because Trump is a billionaire backed by billionaires. Mamdani is a guy backed by you. You do not have the luxury of capital inertia backing up your opinions. You have to be the inertia yourself.
The results are coming in what could be a real-time referendum on the future of the Democratic Party. Many analysts see New York City's mayoral race as a litmus test between establishment Democrats and the younger, more progressive wing of the party. CNN's chief data analyst Harry Enten is with us at the table now. Harry, woo, whoa,
earthquake.
Whoa, yeah.
I mean,
okay, tell us where we are right now.
I mean, look. Mamdani is ahead by plenty at this point. You can see on your screen right there, that's a 7-point lead right now in terms of the first round votes. Now, obviously, New York uses a ranked choice voting system where essentially you eliminate all the candidates, you reallocate their ballots because the folks who get a ballot will rank their candidates 1 through 5, and you essentially reallocate the votes until one candidate gets at least 50%. But I will tell you this, if you look on your screen, you see the third place candidate, Brad Lander, co-endorsed or cross-endorsed with Mamdani. Most of his votes are very likely to go to Mamdani, and not a single pre-election poll that I saw had Cuomo getting anywhere near the type of support that he would need once those ballots reallocated. That lead will almost certainly stand up, and that is why I do believe that Cuomo has conceded the Democratic nomination.
And he's called Mamdani to concede, which is extraordinary.
Let me tell you this. I study New York City politics in my entire life. The only New York City primary that I think is tantamount to this in terms of the earthquake is 1989, when David Dinkins came in and defeated
1989? Who says it like that?
Ed Koch, who is running for a 4th term for mayor. That is the type of earthquake that we're seeing here, and he's done it. He came into this race down, 30, 40 points to Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, who everyone thought was a huge favorite. Apparently not. He did it by activating younger voters, by activating very liberal voters, by cutting into Andrew Cuomo's base with black voters. The bottom line is this. Mamdani is now a force to be reckoned with in Democratic politics nationwide going forward.
Joy, you talked to him on Friday.
We had him on the show on Friday. We also had Brad Lander on, and Brad Lander talked about being tackled by ICE agents as he was trying to defend immigrants. What Mamdani said that I thought was really extraordinary, he would be the first immigrant mayor of the preeminent immigrant capital in the United States, a city that is a sanctuary city where people are still being accosted at their immigration hearings.
Because of Eric
and so
Adams,
I think just symbolically, I think this is a message about people's revulsion in the treatment of immigrants by this administration, and about the ways in which the Adams administration has been complicit in that.
Can I
think
play
that's
a little
part
bit,
of what's
Joy,
made him
from
popular.
your interview with him,
Sure.
where he talks about this? Let's listen.
You know, I would be the first immigrant mayor of this city in generations, and I would be proud to be that, but even prouder for what I would actually do. This is a city of immigrants. We've said for so long, 40% of New Yorkers were born outside of this country, and yet what we've seen in the current mayoral administration, and even in Andrew Cuomo's campaign, is an insufficient readiness to actually take on Donald Trump and protect New Yorkers. One of the things we should be proudest of in New York City are our sanctuary city laws. These are laws that have kept New Yorkers safe for decades, been defended by Republicans and Democrats alike for that time period until the demagoguery of this current mayor. I would proudly stand up for those laws.
So he's talking there also about Eric Adams, who we haven't really talked about.
Everyone be patient, by the way. It's important to this, for this groundwork to be laid, because eventually the opinions start flying out.
Because he's not in this primary, but is expected to run on another line in the general. This will be an indictment on Eric Adams, too, and his willingness to, I guess, in the words of Mamdani, stand up to Donald Trump.
There's no one happier after Mamdani and his family than Eric Adams tonight, because everyone over 50 years old who remembers Times Square in the 1970s and the 1980s when you couldn't walk through, it was all pornography and crack and muggings and rapes and robberies.
With the inexplicable trans pride flag tie. Don't really know, a little incongruous there, but
everyone who remembers that is going to vote for Eric Adams. The New York Times, who didn't do an endorsement, did say, please don't vote for Mamdani, as did the Daily News, as did the New York Post. So anybody who knows how bad New York can get all came out against Mamdani, because a 33-year-old with zero experience running anything except a little office with 5 employees should not be running the city of New York.
Donald Trump is president of the United States. His experience was being on The Apprentice. He's head of the Pentagon, whose experience was being a weekend anchor on Fox. Are you kidding me? He's got Dr. Oz is in his administration. Dr. Oz,
you're leaving out something.
Me?
He's a 33-year-old socialist who's never run a popsicle stand.
He's literally in city government right now. Sorry. After
by the way, I consider this also a massive losing argument for the establishment, both from the right and the left. How are you going to go after Mamdani for inexperience when nobody respects experience anymore? Trump won. Nobody cares. Okay? Nobody gives a shit. Nobody thinks the government is like a sacred, honorable occupation that can only be held by people who have like law degrees from Harvard anymore. Nobody believes this shit. Nobody cares. Okay? There are tons of Democratic representatives with law degrees from Harvard who have like 10% approval rating. Okay, nobody cares anymore. If this is what they're going after him, again, win for Mamdani.
Donald Trump, I'm sorry, after Donald Trump and his pinky in the brain administration, no one ever gets to talk about qualifications.
Socialism will not save the
bottom line is,
what
I want to ask you a question. What is your evidence that Mamdani would return New York City to the 1970s hellhole Times Square? What is your evidence of that?
It's very simple. So he wants to raise taxes on people who make the most money. What eventually is going to happen is you're going to lose that tax base. Once you lose that tax base...
I think that when we take over, it should be illegal to talk about capital flight anymore. It should be illegal. What if you applied this argument to everything else? Like, you can't make illegal. If you do that, all the leave the state and go to another state. Honestly, they probably did talk about that when people in England were first like cooking up the idea of making rape illegal in a book or something. They were probably like, dude, they're like, I know good. They're gonna like leave to go to the Duchy of Wickenburg or something. You know, they're not gonna stay here. Say, all right.
Our bonds will get degraded. Now the city budget will not be substantial enough to subsidize not only the cops, but the fire department, the sanitation department. Once you start losing Wall Street and people who pay $11,000, $12,000 a month to live on the Upper East Side, you're done.
Let me ask you.
And you go back to the 70s when Gerald Ford said to New York, drop dead.
Okay, but hold on, Arthur.
Crisis.
But Arthur, just as somebody who is just listening to you.
Their argument concedes that it's a race to the bottom and that the solution is to raise taxes everywhere. Yes, no, that is true. Yeah, 100%. You need, like, this is what I meant yesterday when I was rambling about, like, the global capitalist spider web. You need, like, a global system to crack down on the movement of capital, because otherwise everything just pools in the area with the most slaves and the lowest taxes.
You raise the taxes on wealthy people in this city, maybe a couple percent, right?
They're already 50%.
Yeah, they're already
53%.
and that's exactly my point. They're already paying some of the high. I know, Arthur, but Arthur, they are already paying right at this moment some of the highest taxes in the country, and you think that 1 or 2% is going to cause a mass exodus out of New York?
Anna just said it's correct. It already has started.
I just want to be clear that that's what you're saying, because I think that seems pretty extraordinary.
Because he's also not going to focus on crime. Right now you have Police Commissioner Tisch and John Chell, the chief of the department. Crime in the city of New York right now is set to break all records as the lowest.
Oh, it's the lowest. Okay.
Ever in recorded history for shootings and murders. Once that starts going up in the other direction, and the tax base is gone, and sanitation is gone, and schools are gone.
Why would crime go up?
Hold on. Last thing I will say, and then I'll let you in, Anna. Well, last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you in. Under Eric Adams, crime.
If spending on police correlates to lowered crime, then why does America have so much higher crime than Norway, even though we spend like dozens of times more per capita on our police? Maybe not dozens, that's an overstatement. Far more, though. Out of curiosity.
Did go up in the city.
And then went down.
Yes, but
that was during the pandemic. And migrants.
Exactly. But I'm just being clear. Crime has already gone up in New York, and it has come down. So even when crime went up in New York, there was perhaps some departure, but there was not a collapse of the tax base in New York City. Okay, Anna, go ahead.
Okay, so I am not.
Is this guy capable of not shouting? No, he doesn't actually believe the stuff that he's saying. This guy, I'm not so sure about this one with the little dorky suit, but this guy is paid to sit here and loudly argue with black women. That is his job. He is always like this. It doesn't matter what the topic is. He is always wrong. It's like crossfire stuff, basically. It's not. It's just meant to lower the quality of discourse. The problem is that if you have a panel where you discuss the issues and everyone there is trying to be like impartial, the left will win every time. So in order to balance out the fact that the right is wrong, like just by default, you need to have loud retards who are paid to say stupid shit. And they have to be loud to compensate for the lack of an argument. Exactly.
New Yorker. I live in Miami where we don't have 50% tax rate.
Like I've already
we have our share of insane elections and insane politicians. But this reminded me, you talked about the Dinkins election. To me, this reminded me of the AOC versus Joe Crowley election, where there was this establishment sacred cow who thought
these people think it's because of ethnic homogeneity. Yeah, but London also has a much lower, like, violent crime rate per capita than, like pretty much anywhere in America, right? And London is super fucking multiracial. So if the argument is, like, well, it's because New York City has more black people or whatever, like, no, London has a lot of non-white people. It is difficult to crunch data on police spending and also on crime between countries because countries record crime differently, but homicides are pretty easy to keep track of because they're, you know, we all have basically the same definition of when a person dies violently, more or less. It's easy to compare that, at least. Same with Paris, right? Same with Berlin. And look, it's just, I know he doesn't believe what he's saying. What I want to see is, what are the attacks Mamdani is going to endure? And as a warrior from Mamdani, okay, you also need to be ready.
That because of his name and because of his pockets, he could walk into it, and there was a young upstart who put a lot of leather and, you know, a lot of footwork and boots on the ground and did it. And so, you know, I would say when it comes to...
It is true that Mamdani is one of the few young reps I have seen who consistently wears leather dress shoes and not shitty dress sneakers. And I, at least in part, attribute his victory to this.
New York, do not underestimate the sweat of these folks. And by the way,
he won. I'm not underestimating.
I would just say this.
And I would not have voted for him.
If you were saying that Eric Adams is the person who's loves this result the second most compared to after Mamdani.
He'll be the anti-Mamdani.
But I will say this, the people who hate this result the most are the Democratic establishment. We have seen poll after poll after poll showing Democratic voters fed up with their leaders in Washington, fed up with their leaders in government. And all of a sudden, Andrew Cuomo, who 5 years ago was leading those COVID, you know, press conferences, was this guy who was held up in such high esteem. And now all of a sudden, the best he can do is what, 37%?
62% of Democrats say.
They were talking
62% of Democrats say that they're
So Republicans had the Tea Party. This is the Chai Party taking over the Democrats. And I run campaigns for Republicans all over the country.
What do you mean by that, the Chai Party taking over for the Democrats? Out of curiosity, what do you mean by that exactly? Would you mind explaining that one?
They turned to 33.
He does look like a 1930s race scientist. So if nothing else, he's kind of like, he's repping the aesthetic.
Year-old socialists who've never run popsicle stands, that's great for us. We'll win a lot of elections.
So can somebody explain this to me now?
Fuck, it was... yeah, Democrats run unqualified candidates. We Republicans have never done that. Now we'll get to win the New York City mayorship. What the fuck are you talking about?
So this could end up, so Cuomo could end up running as an independent. Adams ends up as an independent, and then this guy.
In other words.
Also, yeah, the double popsicle stand reference. It gives me the ick. Come up with a new line. Bow ties opinions? Unless you're trying to look like a dorky professor, I think that bow ties are best left to evening wear, like a tuxedo. But if you're wearing a tuxedo jacket, please God, do not wear a long tie.
Breaking overnight, a major upset in New York City's Democratic primary for mayor. 33-year-old state assemblyman Zohran Mamdani is now poised to win after former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was considered the frontrunner in the race, conceded.
I will fight for a city that works for you, that is affordable for you, that is safe for you. I will work to be a mayor you will be proud to call your own.
And it is a big moment. Important to note that Mamdani did not reach the 50% threshold of the vote, though. So the race will be decided by ranked choice votes officially starting July 1st, as CNN projects. I want to bring in CNN's Gloria Pazmino, who joins me now. Okay, for those just tuning in, how did this upset happen? What happens?
We're doing an election breakdown here. Okay, get me to the panel. Okay, we're doing op analysis right now. I mean it.
Thanks for being here.
I wanted to talk about this because it is even the strikes in Israel and how to talk about Israel came up in this New York race. And it's also a moment where you have a Democratic socialist who's come to the fore. I don't know who wants to take this first, but what's your initial reaction?
Sure. Well, first of all, candidate quality clearly matters. And this is one high-quality candidate, and he spoke to issues that the base voters of the Democratic Party.
Next to a former governor? I mean, this is a guy who knows how to run.
I mean, everybody watching this was wondering where he was on the stump, whereas Mamdani was everywhere, right? He was very energetic.
Also, Cuomo, resigned in disgrace after some extremely high-profile scandals.
Very effective at messaging, spoke to core issues that people care about. When it comes to Israel and Jewish issues, though, he did freak out to be you know, a little loose in the words about it, but he freaked out the Jewish voters in New York. And there's a lot of concerns that he's hostile to Israel, and there are a lot of concerns that he's going to sort of look the other way when Jewish New Yorkers feel threatened, and I think he's going to have to address those a lot more directly. He skated around that quite a bit.
No. I think he addressed it directly every time it came up, which was all the time. Dude, sorry. People are sick of hearing about Israel. Your strategy lost, man. It's over. No one fucking cares. Nobody believes that you're anti-Semitic because you don't like the pedophile haven child bombing ethno-state 10,000 miles away. Nobody can. You just shouldn't like Israel as a human, just human morality wise, by default, you shouldn't like Israel. It has nothing to do with Jewish people. The loudest and most obnoxious Zionists in this country are Christians.
There's so many elements here because on the one hand, you have a 33-year-old Democratic socialist, and it feels like this is an AOC, Bernie Sanders, young movement wing of the Democratic Party.
And she did support him, so this
absolutely.
Is not,
Is it going to have, does it say anything about our national politics? And I think that's why we are sitting here talking about it. Is he going to become a lightning rod that Republicans nationally are going to say, this is the Democratic Party, and can Republicans use that in the midterms? And then on the other hand,
the Republicans at no point have managed to build any real power around the fact that AOC won. They never have. They have insulted AOC, but if they didn't have AOC to insult, any other Democrat would have been their AOC. They lie all the time. Literally, you could run Lenin and he would win and it wouldn't change. He would get called a socialist just as much as the rest of them. He's called Schumer a Palestinian. He's called Kamala Harris and Biden communists. It literally doesn't matter. Stop buying into the propaganda, the fake bullshit, the idea that this is effective. AOC is more popular than almost any Republican official. Overwhelmingly so.
And I think there is the candidate quality issue. You have Eric Adams, extremely compromised, now running as an independent. Cuomo, very compromised over the sexual harassment problems. And this young, vibrant candidate who walked the length of Manhattan and is talking
so just
about...
not compromised, basically, is the bar in some
he's not
way.
those two.
Let me bring Debbie for the last moment.
He's compromised because, you know, essentially New York is the largest Jewish city in the world. Bigger than Jerusalem, bigger than Tel Aviv, more Jews in New York City than either of those cities, maybe even combined. So Mamdani does have a problem moving forward there. But on the issue of Canada...
Why? A lot of those Jews voted for Mamdani. It's Mamdani. Why? What problem? What problem?
Quality. Yes, very clearly Andrew Cuomo had a lot of personal issues. But what was the reason for him to run? What was his real campaign message? It seemed that the only reason he was a candidate was because he wanted back in.
Joining me now to talk more, Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan. Thank you for being here this morning.
Great to be with you.
One of the reasons why I'm excited to talk to you is because you are a leader in the Congression Progressive Caucus. And this is a moment where you have a Democratic socialist who has kind of moved to the forefront, where establishment Democrats had backed Cuomo. Why do you think those establishment Democrats were backing Cuomo, and was that a misread of the room, so to speak?
The only thing they seem to have is claiming Mamdani's anti-Semitic, or implying it, which I find even more frustrating. At least the people outright claiming it, make a statement, but the people who are like, Mamdani will have difficulty winning over the Jewish New Yorkers. Why? Tell me why. Is it because those Jewish New Yorkers are Islamophobic? In which case, they're the bad ones. What do you like? What? You're being so fucking weaselly.
This is one of the things that I've been saying for years. You're starting to hear more people say it. You will recall that I predicted that Hillary Clinton was going to lose in 2016 and was the bad girl of the Democratic Party and the Debbie Downer, and unfortunately I was right. What I noticed about these two candidates, one was out, one was about. They were talking with people. They were using new forms of media. They were using podcasts, social media. And Governor Cuomo ran a very traditional consultant ad, used paid media, and you didn't see him out and about. So while I do think some of his ideas are exciting, people are worried about let's be clear, people are worried about the cost of living, they're worried about caregiving, they're worried about they can have a job, they can find affordable housing. Yeah. All those issues were there, and he talked about them. People, I'm afraid, are going to try to turn this into, what does this mean? I think it shows that Democrats have got to start getting out and listening to people.
Is this a New York win, or can you see more candidates like this gaining traction around the country?
I think that what we have to look at is how he campaigned and the issues that he talked about and his ability to meet with a lot of people.
Right, he was talking about free buses, talking about
The problem, and this is something the liberals need to internalize as well, is that Cuomo never could run Mamdani's campaign because Mamdani's campaign and Mamdani's energy is built on a belief that the world can be better, and Cuomo's campaign is and always would be built on the resignation to the point that it can't be. And that's it. There's no way around that. You can never, ever, ever. The closest the Democrats have ever come to capturing the energy with no substance was Obama. And Obama did very well. But that was in the before times. Obama won his first election almost 20 years ago. Nobody's falling for that again. You know why he did? Because it was after 2 terms of Bush. And because back then you could say hope and change and people would believe you. But nowadays, people have policies on the mind. Nowadays, people ask you specific questions. Nowadays, people have, whether it's Medicare for all or housing prices or Israel's fucking constant warring in the Middle East or whatever else, you have specific answers to give. And what does Obama give to those questions nowadays in his post-presidential period? He hems and he haws. Well, you see, the American people do not, we have many opinions on these questions. Seriously, have you seen him? He always, let me be clear, disappears. Yeah, he doesn't have decisive answers to these questions because he's not a decisive candidate. He doesn't believe in anything. He believes only in the fact that he's smarter than you, which, statistically speaking, is probably true. He's a bright guy, but that doesn't make him good, and it certainly didn't make him a good leader. That shit ain't working again. And this, I'm sorry, it took me a while to find it, but your time is up on the bullying progressives with the this illusory anti-Semitism of criticizing Israel. Okay, nobody fucking likes Israel. For young Republicans, now half of them unfavorable of Israel. For Democrats, both young and old, range around 2/3. You're not. It's not, and every year it passes, it's more and more with time. It shifts in this direction. Israel will never be sympathetic to Americans because they are fundamentally unsympathetic. So what are you going to do about them? Are you going to bend the knee?
Raising rents, but affordability.
Affordability is what we need to be talking about. Some people are going to try to pin it, he's a communist, what he is talking to people about what they care about, and he's talking to people. He's out and about. It's what I'm trying to encourage in my Democratic caucus. I want every member of the Democratic caucus to walk into a union hall or go to a meeting with a union worker.
Well, I do agree with that. CNN, keep it up.
33-year-old State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, born 1991, delivering a major upset in the New York City mayoral primary last night, a contest that some are saying could forecast the future of the broader Democratic Party. President Trump weighing in on Mamdani's expected victory just within the past hour, slamming him as a, quote, 100% communist lunatic and warning that, quote, Democrats have crossed the line. A self-described Democratic socialist, Mamdani poised to beat former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had been backed by prominent figures in the party's establishment after running on a platform that he says should serve as a model for the National Democratic Party. Zohran Mamdani's rise, though, was fueled by a massive presence on social media that clipped, in many cases, performances like this one.
I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I.
Remember the part right after that where he cut himself off? Because he was very clearly about to say, and you better get it right because I'm going to be your mayor. But then he decided that would be like a little bit too cute. So he was like, because it's important to get it right. You know what I mean? Like he was thinking like, how hard do I want to commit? You know?
Wow. David Axelrod.
That was a spanking right there.
I mean, candidates matter, I guess. What do you take away from this?
I think that exchange went viral.
When they say candidates matter, they're not wrong, but they are trying to pin this on Cuomo being a uniquely bad candidate. In reality, Cuomo was a shoo-in for victory. Mamdani fought those odds. No other candidate would have even come close to Cuomo's numbers. Yeah, he's a bad candidate. He's the Democratic establishment. You're all bad candidates.
Really big way, and it in some ways encapsulated the dynamic of this race, because Andrew Cuomo got into this race to try and come back from being forced out of the governorship, from being disgraced by what happened, and this was. But there was always this sense that he, wasn't all that interested, and when he attacked. It's a fair point to ask Mamdani about his experience, but he just opened himself up to that, and it reminded people that he was the past and that it was time to move on. And I think that was part of the dynamic that governed this race.
What do you think this means, big picture? Like, how much should we be taking away from what we've seen here?
I think there are things we should take away and there are things that we shouldn't. I mean, winning a Democratic primary in New York is different than winning a primary somewhere else or an election somewhere else. But there are certain things that I think do travel. One is the issue of affordability is one that you can feel in every district.
If Mamdani didn't exist, do you think Cuomo would win, or would it be Lander, Blake, or someone? If Mamdani had not run, Lander would have won because the deep state wouldn't have tagged Cuomo in. The deep state understood that Mamdani was going to beat out Lander, but they thought Cuomo could beat him. If Cuomo had been tapped in and Mamdani just never ran in, like they just brought Cuomo in for the fun of it, he would have beaten anyone else. Anyone else, any other campaign. Name recognition and familiarity would have been it. Incumbency wins overwhelmingly in the absence of an incredibly well-organized campaign, which only Mamdani delivered. No hate to Lander. We love Lander. But Mamdani's in a league of his own.
In this country, and that is why he ultimately won, because he owned that issue. He drove it in a really, really effective way, and I think the New Yorkers who voted for him were very much moved by it. I also think there's a message in here about young people. He brought young people out in a way that we haven't seen in a long.
Are we doing the deep state thing ironically or unironically? Unironically. I'm talking about moneyed interests within the Democratic Party. It's especially prominent in New York because, again, New York Democrats are the worst Democrats in the nation by a huge margin, you know? I mean, you could talk about Schumer here or whatever, but like it's fundamentally, it's about money. It's not a secret conspiracy. It's just like, it's all open. Like the money, the interest groups and the PACs, like none of it's behind closed doors. We wikied one literally yesterday. That woman, that idiot who dropped into that CBS interview, who was one of the most important women in New York City, and her job was just representing business people. And she was clearly like totally out of her depth talking about it, but she was so distressed at the idea of a socialist winning. That's what I mean. I'm not talking about like a secret cabal of people. These are by and large lucky idiots, freaks, losers, who just happen to have an enormous amount of power. It's the same as an aristocracy, right? Like, an aristocracy is not made up of unusually talented people. In fact, they might be like pretty dumb, you know? That doesn't make them any less powerful.
Time
They had a Palantir ad in the interview. Oh yeah, they literally had a Palantir ad in the background of the CBS interview. That's true. It was on one of the fucking display screens back there. Yeah. And when I say deep state, like, I really do think these people tagged Cuomo in. Cuomo fully represents them. He runs, he gets tens of millions, record-breaking amounts of money in super PACs from businesses and very wealthy, very evil people, openly evil. None of it's a secret. You just Google these people and it's like, oh, wow, for the past 30 years, they've just been in favor of evil. They're stupid, they're loud, they're arrogant, and they just keep, like, over and over, they just keep getting what they want because they're incredibly powerful. What exactly makes them evil? Well, anti-progressive, opposition to labor rights, the squelching of progressivism within the Democratic Party. A lot of them are pedophiles. A lot of them have Epstein associations. A lot of them are just powerful business people, everything that entails. I mean, capital accumulations, I mean, to an extent, that's kind of like its own game. I mean, just like everything, literally like everything. Just look like any of them up. Look up Bill Ackman. Look up Dershowitz. Look up Cuomo. Just Google them. Literally, just like look at their Wikipedia page. You know? So they only selected Cuomo because of Mamdani? I think that, yeah, I do think that. I think that they tapped Cuomo in because they didn't want Mamdani to win. And I think it would have worked if Mamdani was not really, really good at what he does. Dershowitz is the lawyer for Israel. Yeah, he was Epstein's lawyer, too. He's the pedophile friend of Epstein, the lawyer who defended Epstein and helped keep him from a longer and worse sentence. And also OJ's lawyer. And also, yes, friends with Netanyahu. Cuomo's also a lawyer for Netanyahu.
And I think there is a message from young voters in this country that the same old, the status quo isn't working. You know, I said yesterday when I was on the show, 25% of the early voters had never voted in a primary before, and many of them were young. Because they felt like...
He argued for lowering age of consent, no? I believe Dershowitz did argue for lowering the age of consent. I could be misremembering, but I believe so.
He was genuinely addressing their concerns.
As in, he's currently their lawyer? Yes, Cuomo is currently on a legal team to defend Netanyahu against war crime charges from the International Criminal Court. In case you were wondering, like, how obviously these people are all in bed with each other.
Affordability being at the top of the list with proposals that we can debate, but at least they seem tangible. They weren't the same old political jargon. And I think there's a lesson in that as well.
So you are a longtime political hack, right?
Yeah,
it's on tap.
I wear that proudly.
Everyone should listen.
Sure, Brad does too.
One of the things about this race that fascinates me as a political reporter, and I'm curious what you think, you know, Cuomo seemed to run a very traditional, you know, TV media, you know, paid.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The Vox article. Alan Dershowitz helped sex offender Jeffrey Epstein get a plea deal. Now he's tweeting about age of consent laws. I'm going to continue to speak out until the day I die, the Harvard law professor told Vox. We know. So yeah, when I say deep state, like, I'm really just talking about obviously evil, stupid, loud, rich pedophiles who all know each other. It's not secret. It's not a conspiracy. It's all open. You can, it's on Wikipedia. It's not like, this is why the right and the left's definition of deep state, and I'm only co-opting the term deep state because it so perfectly describes what we're talking about here. Like, conspiracy theorists on the right want it to be, well, of course they want it to be Jews when it's not. It's made up of many, many people. The deep state, if you refer to like the upper crust of capital interest, extends across the entire world and represents every racial, ethnic, and religious group in existence. Or I imagine most of them. Maybe there's some tiny religious groups that haven't been in on the... I don't know if there are any Kurdish members of the deep state. I'll have to get back to you, okay? I don't know if there are any Sikhs up there. I'll have to get back to you, okay? The Rastafarians may or may not be in the upper echelon. Maybe there's one guy. I don't know. The Amish? Yeah, what about the Amish, you know? I don't know. Maybe just one. But the right wants it to be like a super creepy cabal, like a secret group of hyper competent evil people. In reality, it's an open non-cabal of usually like pretty stupid people. You don't have to be smart to rule the world. Look at Elon, dude. You just have to have a lot of money. How do you get a lot of money? Get lucky. Just get lucky. Do venture capital shit. Get lucky. Get in Bitcoin early. Who the fuck cares, man? None of these people are smart. Peter Thiel isn't smart. Look at him talk. What? Curtis Yarvin. That guy's a fucking idiot. Have you seen them talk? None of these people are smart, man. Smart people are too self-conscious to do the kind of shit that ends up getting you the aristocracy. We are well past the era of like meritocracy, okay? If we ever were in one, we're not in it now. Lol, you don't think Peter Thiel is smart? No. Have you seen him talk? Absolutely not. He's just an evil freak. His ideas are sophomoric. I was having conversations, the shit he talks about in his gay little TED Talks. I was talking shit like that in high school. Not because I'm smart, mind you, but because it's banal pseudo philosophy. It's nothing. He's deranged. Okay, sorry. We're really getting away from the topic here, which is Mamdani shooters, you know? Warren Buffett is smart, which is why he's like autistic. He just plays with his train set.
Media-based campaign. In my personal life, I make a point to filter out that kind of stuff in my own personal Instagram and other accounts. Mamdani was all over. Like, I learned about Mamdani from my own personal, friends and from that ecosystem. Do you think that one of Cuomo's big failures was not doing it that way? I think every aspect of his campaign was yesterday, honestly. And Ashley Ashley lives in this world of social media. Talk about dreadfully.
That. Yeah. No, but talk about the techniques that he used, which I think were, a lot of it has to do with the messenger,
messenger,
too.
yeah.
Because he's utterly authentic.
Well, I don't even think if Cuomo actually tried to run the campaign that Mamdani did, he could have, because he is not a translatable candidate on social media. You had great clips that were engaging, seeing him on the subway. Like, does Cuomo even live in New York City is the question, to be on the subway.
What do we think is the last time Cuomo took the subway?
Exactly, to actually get somewhere, right? And so people who ride the subway, they know the good and the bad of the subway. And so
So far, I actually like this analysis.
But then he had other people conveying his message also. People who didn't look like him, people who weren't of the same faith as him, people who weren't in the same economic class of his. I think the lesson that I am learning for this is, and I want Democrats to listen hard, and it's like, why was Andrew Cuomo actually even the option for Democrats to be choosing against in that moment?
Because he was tagged
He
in.
was rebuked by many Democrats that eventually came out and endorsed him, which is compromising. And young people notice that.
Oh, yeah, that's another big point of evidence to my, like, borderline conspiracism. The fact that so many establishment New York Democrats kicked out Cuomo in disgrace and then sheepishly endorsed him when he came back years later in his mayoral race. Why would they do that unless there was some pressure from behind the scenes? Why else would they do that? There's no, come on. Yeah, Bill Clinton does not step down from his fucking pedophile throne to talk with Cuomo and endorse him unless there's some serious behind the scenes chatter about how Mamdani can't win. Yeah, all hands on deck, exactly.
It feels inauthentic. And the whole November election, we went back and forth, and you told me everything was too expensive. So we had a candidate talking about everything being too expensive, and guess what? He won. Look at that.
But you're right that Slipper only fits Cinderella, and he's Cinderella in this case. But I think that this election matters to Democrats, not in New York, but in other places around the country. Because this morning, in congressional districts all over, left-wing Fruit Loops woke up and said, why not me? And so they're going to run as candidates against their incumbent Democrat member of Congress in primaries. They're going to run in open seats. Well, I've seen this.
Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you very much, Alec. List of Democrats who initially condemned Cuomo, but then stepped back up to endorse him for this. Richie Torres, Greg Meeks, Congress member. State Senator Joseph Abato, U.S. Rep. Tom Suozzi, Jessica Ramos, we all know that one. State Senator James Sander Jr. Why would they feel the need to do this unless there was pressure behind the scenes? Assemblyman Stacey Pfeffer Amato, Assemblymember William Colton, former Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. And this is only the explicit endorsements. What about the implicit endorsements of people who refused to comment on Cuomo's presence in the race, even though they were shouting at Cuomo back when he left the governorship? U.S. Rep. Adriano Espaillat? Probably Espaillat. Assemblymember Charles Floyd. Jesus Christ, this goes on for a while. Okay, hold on. We're getting off track again. Oh, my God.
This movie before, Republicans, we had this problem in 2010.
You had a few Fruit Loops of your own.
Yeah. But you know what else
I'll
mattered
readily
in
admit
this one is ranked choice voting, actually, is another thing that really mattered. And this campaign did a strategic job of having people cross-endorse, particularly on like the Lander and Mamdani cross-endorsement
Ramos
actually was
at the,
big because there
Cuomo
were some
watch party.
questions about being vulnerable with Jewish voters, and that endorsement mattered. And that was a strategic, political, operative, aggressive approach that actually was
Can I tell you, I woke up this morning, and you will appreciate this, not to date you in any way, but I woke up this morning and this Bob Dylan lyric was in my head. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway. Don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. The battle outside raging will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a changing. That's what young people in this town were saying. We're tired.
You want to get a few more verses out?
Of the same kind of brain-dead politics, the hypocrisy and so on. And they expressed themselves in this election yesterday.
Could I just add, though, that what happened in New York, I think in some places in this country, it will be similar, but in a lot of places it won't. Andrew Cuomo was not, it's polite to say he was a flawed candidate. And Mamdani was energetic, charismatic, out there working hard. But if you go just next door to New York, to New Jersey, where Mickey Sherrill is running, if you go to Virginia, where Abigail Spanberger, those are two centrist Democrats likely to win their races.
There is one thing I would like to play also. This, Cuomo worked to make this an issue in the race, but also many Jewish people who live in New York have raised questions about Mamdani. And this is a clip of an interview that he did with Tim Miller over at the Bulwark, where he was pressed about the phrase globalize the Intifada, which has become something that has come up in these pro-Palestine protests. I want to play how Mamdani answered that question. Take a look.
Has it come up in these pro-Palestinian protests, or is it just like a phrase you heard one time? Who brought up these concerns? Jewish New Yorkers? Because my understanding was that it was like the Democratic establishment. Sometimes Jewish people in the establishment, but I don't really think that was coming from Jewish New Yorkers.
The phrase globalized intifada, from the river to the sea, does that make you uncomfortable, or do you think
those are different? Those are super different.
They're not really
like different genres.
I'm sorry, I'm asking Zoran. Then they're not really different to me, and to some people they're not different.
You know, I know people for whom those things mean very different things, and to me, ultimately, what I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights.
So this is part.
Okay.
Part of why Ashley was underscoring that the alliance between Mamdani and Lander was so important, because it inoculated in some ways some of these criticisms. But David Axelrod, globalize the Intifada is viewed as a call to violence against Jewish people, and this is the most the most Jewish city in the world.
Has that same implication. Listen, I've said it before. I'm the son of a Jewish refugee. I feel really. I was devastated by what happened on October 7th.
Okay.
I also weep for the children of Gaza.
Okay.
I want to know that he weeps for the people who were brutalized and sexually assaulted and murdered and kidnapped on October 7th.
He has said that he's never, ever, ever said, or even implied, that he endorsed what Hamas did on October 7th. Like, we're still doing the have you condemned Hamas thing.
And that, there is an understanding that that rights should be pervasive, that respect for human dignity should be pervasive. And so I think he's going to need to communicate that to Jews and non-Jews in this city.
He has done this. It's not. Also, I don't think he should have to communicate that by default. Like what? Because he's Muslim and progressive, and doesn't like the genocidal pedophile haven ethno-state, he needs to go out and say, everyone, just to let you all know, I am not in favor of killing civilians. Why? Why should he have to do that? Wouldn't it make more sense to wait to see if he says anything like he supports Hamas and killing civilians and then condemn him for that? Why do we have to do the fucking preemptive disavowal?
This is a big problem for Democrats. They've increasingly got out of the lane where the center of this country is. I mean, Democrats, Harry Truman is one that recognized Israel's statehood. Democrats have
fucking retard with the yellow ribbon on his jacket. It's not Democrats getting out of step with where the country is. Democrats, the voter base, are not sympathetic to Israel. This is ridiculous.
Long held an advantage. Bill Clinton, did Barack Obama, we have a long line here. I'm not saying that the mayor of New York or the presumptive mayor of New York is going to drive the entire party, but it is a thing that if I were a Democrat strategist, I would be paying attention to. How do we fix our anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist position?
People don't have to agree.
Ridiculous. Wait, is this the same guy as the CNN panel that we looked at earlier, the race scientist? He's wearing the same brown suit jacket. It is? Okay. He's wearing, I think, different glasses, which is why, maybe he isn't. Maybe I'm just...
with everything that this guy says, and I think that's one thing that we have to recognize. And if you feel strongly on this issue, then repudiate him for saying it.
Yeah.
But he also has the opportunity to express himself on this in a way that might allay some concern.
And he has been asked in many other iterations where he is condemning anti-Semitism, and I think actions will speak louder. And he talked about how he was going to be a mayor for all of New York.
I'm not going to lie. I actually did expect more freak behavior from CNN over this. I feel like so far today has been pretty encouraging. It seems like Republicans don't know what to say about him, and Democrats don't know what to say about him. They don't know what to say. They're kind of like taken aback. They're stunned. Falling in line? No, they're not falling in line. Not yet. But it is encouraging. This is a more anti-Mamdani CNN video. Well, is it after the election or before the election? We already saw this one. Here, CNBC. What's the tone?
Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, someone's here. That's why I said this. Someone who has run for office, who knows how sharp the elbow is.
This is CNBC, though. What are they going to do? Fucking complain about Wall Street not getting their fair share?
Michelle Crusoe-Cabrera is here to talk about Mamdani being the guy after Cuomo basically conceded to this gentleman and state assemblyman. No candidate is set to secure a majority in the first round of the city's ranked choice election, but last night he did lead the vote count, and he had, as we're finding out, 44% in 1 million votes, the biggest we've seen.
It was a very heavy turnout, very heavy turnout.
We have betting sites now, so nothing's a surprise anymore.
Right.
Because he moved ahead in those and in some of the polls, so I still...
Well, that's high IQ analysis. Right off the... like, right out the gate.
Thought it might not happen.
So last night...
I don't live here, so it's not...
So the results aren't official yet, but basically last night a socialist won the Democratic primary in New York City. And generally in states or cities where you have one party that dominates the politics of a city or state, whoever wins the primary generally goes on to win the general election.
Yeah.
So right now the betting markets have that a socialist will be the next mayor of New York City when the November election. That's Zohran Mamdani. You see him there in the video. He is an avowed socialist. When he first won his assembly seat back in the summer of 2020, the New York Times tweeted, they were tweets back then, said there's a new progressive representing Astoria, Queens, which is the part of New York City that he is from or is living in. And he tweeted back at them and said, stop calling me a progressive. I'm a socialist. And back then he was running on defund the police.
God, he's so fucking based.
Well, that's this time around,
Does he know
right?
what that is exactly?
I think he knows exactly what it is, sure.
So we want October 7th type things to happen here. And
in your studio? Well, yeah, I mean, these people are going to be openly antagonistic because they're just like, they're just business analysts, right?
So,
Michelle, I heard somebody this morning, I think it was the managing editor of Bloomberg, saying that he
business goons
has reached out to Jewish leaders in New York City.
He
and
has.
says that he wants to work with them.
How does anyone not act like this and instantly lose all legitimacy? It's business news. Like, this has always been what they're like. They're horribly right wing because having money makes you evil. It's always been like that. Sorry. That's just that's how the cards fall. Listen, I live in reality, okay? You can live in fantasy land where people's opinions are detached from their material conditions, their moral, positions. And I'll live here in reality where, like, every single time a bunch of people get together and say, we're going to represent the interests of the wealthy, they're just evil. But I don't know. Nobody fucking cares, man. Nobody watches CNBC for, like, political analysis. Does calling him anti-Semitic actually do anything? I think that his results last night show that it doesn't. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty fucking good right now. Is that wrong? Is it wrong to feel good? The answer is no. It's good to feel good. We got to be out here for Mamdani. Warriors for Mamdani. What about people like Bernie who have money but are openly against corporations? What about reflexive contrarians who understand a point but want to get my attention? Successfully, mind you, anyway, by ineptly arguing against it. You know, there are a lot of exceptions. To every system, there are exceptions. What about the droid attacks on the Wookiees?